Hello. There you are. I see a face.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about yourself?
I am doing good, I think, anyways.
Well, good. I
It's
see
just that, oh, go ahead.
I see they have my photo as Tanya, and I am actually Linda Reed. So I think that that's just because she probably set up the whole Zoom session in general.
Oh, there you go. Well, nice to meet you. So
Thank you
you're
for
not Tanya, huh?
Pardon me?
So you're not going to be Tanya,
Not today. Not today.
huh?
By the end of the session, I might wish I was, but
Let's hope not.
well, I'll explain it to the rest of the group, but I normally do a, a session on buyers, and so I'm stepping in at the last minute for somebody else. So
Oh, I see.
right now I'm going, well, what do I say?
Where are you from?
I'm in Eugene.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love Eugene.
Yeah,
He's
where are you from?
actually, I live in Roseburg right now,
Oh, uh-huh.
but originally I'm from Costa Rica,
Oh, wow.
and I've lived in Eugene, Medford, and Bend.
Oh, well, you've been all over.
Yeah, all over Oregon, actually. Yeah, because I even grew up in Eastern Oregon. So yeah, I've
Oh,
seen
really? Where at in Eastern Oregon?
up by Walla Walla, a little town called Milton Freewater.
Well, I was born in Walla Walla, so I'm very
Ah,
familiar.
yeah,
I
I
went
went
to
to school in State Line.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I went to high school in Hermiston,
Ah,
so I spent.
when, when did you do that?
Well, I graduated in 1970. So
Okay, that would have been before my sister, because my sister went to Hermiston.
yeah, it's I've been gone there. I moved when 2 years after graduation, I moved to Corvallis, and so my ex-husband was going to Oregon State University and pharmacy, and so we moved to Corvallis, and then after that we moved to Eugene, and I've never left.
There you go. Yeah, I lived in Eugene when it was still a small little town. That's been like
Yeah,
a long time ago.
it has changed a lot.
It has. It's really funny because I was ahead of each curve every time. Like I lived, so we went from Roseburg to Eugene, and Eugene was still small, and then it got big, and we moved to Bend. Bend was like 30,000 people, and it's hard to imagine that. But then it grew really big, and we moved, and then we went to Medford, and now Medford's growing. It's like we're just ahead of that curve.
Yeah. Well, Medford and I have done a lot of gone down to Jacksonville or Jackson
Hmm.
and Jacksonville. I get, is it Jackson or
Yeah, it's
Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
Yeah, I get it mixed up with Jackson, California, because I went there a lot too. I used to go for the Brit Festival down there every year, multiple
Yeah.
times a year, and so um, but it's a nice place. Boy, they get fogged in, and the pollution and stuff. That's the only thing um that I don't like.
Yeah, it's interesting because many years ago it used to always get really fogged in. And then they
Hmm.
started doing that thing called seeding for the airport.
Oh,
And so what that does is that caused the fog to drop down, like it turned into little pebbles, like ice pebbles. And so you'd look
hmm.
on the road and it would be little ice chunkies. Anyways, and they decided that was unhealthy. So they quit doing that about 5 years ago. And the fog has come back.
Huh. That is interesting how it can change it that much.
Yeah, it did. It was really weird. But actually I think the fog is good for the fires. So we don't have so many fires because it helps the trees stay moist.
Yeah, well, of course, you don't get the fires in the winter time, and that's when you get the most fog. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a catch 22, seriously.
yep, it is. But it just seems like in Medford, the last several years I lived there, you couldn't even go out and enjoy the summer. It was really bad.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is bad. And then of course when they have to put those smudge pots out for the fruit trees and everything to keep
Hmm.
keep
Yep.
the in the early spring when it's when it's bloom time season for, yeah, agriculture is a vicious cycle, you know, you're fighting Mother Nature
Yep. You know
and
what's something I learned that they do there, and I thought it was really interesting in the early, like when the blooms are just coming out, and if it's gonna freeze, and they know it's gonna have a freeze for the night, they
Mhm.
will actually water their plants. And then what it does is it builds an icicle around it, and it keeps it from freezing. I'd never heard of that until then, until Medford.
Huh, yeah, well, I know that they've done it, yeah,
I
it's,
had just never heard of that, and I thought it was really interesting that they would put ice around it to protect it from freezing.
yeah, well, it sounds counterintuitive because you think it would damage the bloom and all of that, but yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, crazy.
I know it is crazy.
Well, I see, it's 1:01 and I believe that Mara has jumped on. So Mara, are you there, dear?
I am. All right, so let's do our accountability check-in real quick, and then we can get Linda started. Um, Lori, you want to get us started today? Oh, can you guys hear her?
I heard her drop in. She's on my list, but
You're not muted, but I can't hear you talk. Okay. Well, that might not be working. You can type it in if you want, or if you get off and get back on and see if that works. That's totally fine as well. Joe, you want to get us started?
Hi, everybody. Well, I've been doing a little construction thing today. So I haven't been very accountable today. I'm talking to some lead gen people. I've made a list of sort of who in my sphere are my VIPs, and I'm starting to like develop what I want to say to them, and asking for reviews. That is it. That's it. I went to the land use thing yesterday. That was amazing, by the way. So
Good.
but
Awesome.
that's it.
Zinnia?
So let's see. I was trying to just kind of play with the listing on RMLS, but it told me that it was already listed. And I was like, well, how does that work? So I was talking to my brother, and anyways, I haven't figured that out, but I'm hoping to get the listing here soon. So I was just kind of practicing. And then this morning I went through RMLS and did sending out a whole bunch of properties to a potential buyer. So that's it.
Awesome. Yes. Let's jump on and later and figure out what's going on with inputting that.
Okay.
Make sure it's not listed. Lori, you want to see if your mic works now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay,
Yay.
I have no idea what was going on.
Sometimes getting off and on just fixes it all.
Yeah. I finally got my business cards on Monday. Or no, I got them last Friday actually. And did an open house. Violet, can you quiet please? Sorry, that was my kid.
That's totally fine.
I put some like little like gummy bear packs and business cards together for my open house is sort of like just like a handout thing. And I'm gonna try to do something else like that and go around my neighborhood. I'm in the Washburn district in Springfield. So
great.
it's a really small, cute little area. And I really want to put the word out because I know a lot of people in this little area. So my next step is to just get like some sort of flyers going. And yeah, like I said earlier, I just emailed everybody that came to the open house and just thanked them and answered any questions that they had. So I haven't heard anything back yet, but fingers crossed. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good job. Alexander?
Hey there. Starting a huge marketing campaign now in the whole area with that flyer that I sent you the other day.
Great.
And just talking to a lot of people and trying to get good momentum here.
Awesome. Good job. Mitch?
Hey Mara, how's it going?
Good.
Everything's good, just kind of trucking along. I got another open house next week and I got some things that are kind of a little bit further down the road, some potentials. So just trying to find somebody ready now.
Yeah, absolutely. Search continues. Good job. Emily Steele.
Hey, so I am shadowing an open house this Sunday in Tualatin. I got my business cards designed and ordered. Let's see, what else have I done? I got all my contacts finally ported over to Command. Yeah, I'm just really starting to kind of take off and get rolling on everything. My MLS is set up, so I was exploring on there earlier today. And tomorrow I'm gonna start focusing in every day mostly on lead generation, since I haven't been able to touch on that lately.
Good. Awesome. Good job. Emily Nordquist.
I'm about ready to pull my hair out with this HOA single wide, but I'm learning a lot. We are learning a lot. So hopefully that's going live tomorrow. We've got one little step to do. I did an open house last weekend, but didn't have anybody come in. And then I'm working on a second listing and scheduling the photographer to come tomorrow.
Awesome.
So.
Good job. All right. Did I get everyone? Skylar, did you want to say anything? I know you're still kind of exploring.
No, I'm good. I'm just learning while I'm here. I'll be out there in November, so just trying to get a head start.
Perfect. Okay, well, excellent. So today we have Linda Reed, who is going to be our instructor. Oh, and I did want to make a quick announcement. So we won't have office hours today because Keller Williams Eugene does have our annual barbecue and vendor fair, which I'm actually in charge of hosting. So I'll be doing that, but if you were going to hop on and need me for anything, just shoot me a text or an email and we'll coordinate a time that works in the next day or so, depending on how urgent it is. And then, so yes, Linda was licensed in summer of 2017 as a solo agent. She's been in the top 20% of production for Keller Williams Eugene Springfield. She has served on the culture committee since joining Keller Williams and believes the KW culture is one of our strongest assets. She's a big proponent of being a lifelong learner, participated in BOLD twice, which is another training you guys will hear coming back in the fall, and rarely misses a Portland event when special trainings or speakers are brought in. So definitely the definition of someone who plugs all the way in and has seen benefits of that. So definitely ask her any questions. If you can participate and have your camera on, great. And then for those of you in Eugene, I'll see you after the class for the barbecue.
All right, well, thank you, Mara. Now I'm going to do a screen share to make sure we're all on board here before you take off. All right, how are we?
I would like to be at your backdrop for this class if possible.
Well, just log on to Zoom and do it in your own thing, and you can just dream about it. That's what I do. All right, well, we're ready to go, so let's just dive right in. And I want to say first that I love hearing all of your stories, and as you're getting started in this business, it can be a daunting task. And I came into real estate 9 years ago with a lumber sales background. And when I first started as a wholesale lumber broker, I was at a sawmill before I became a wholesaler. And all of our business in both cases was done on the phone. And so we would do cold calls to established businesses when you started out as a new lumber broker. And it's not a whole lot different than the concept of looking for your buyers and sellers in the real estate industry. And so many skills, and you're going to have skills that you don't realize that you've already laid the groundwork for yourself. And in my case, one that I had no idea that was going to reap me huge benefits was that of negotiation. when I was a wholesale lumber broker, I not only bought lumber, but I sold lumber. So I did both. And the profits are generally, you have more profit in the buying end of the property of the lumber that you're selling. And we would do bulk buys. So we'd buy multiple truckloads at a time so we could get a better price. But what I learned in that process of negotiating was to be fearless. And that is, if you're going to counter somebody, which happens in trading real estate all the time, particularly if a house has been on the market for a while. And oftentimes, even in a steady market, people will come in with a less than list price offer. So negotiation is ongoing in our lives. And so that turned out to be a really massive skill that I had no idea was going to reap the benefit that it did to me in working with both buyers and sellers. Just keep that in mind as you go forward, because the beginning is the hardest part of the business. Once that you get established and have a few deals under your belt, then you're going to start realizing other issues that can give you gray hairs during the night and things like that. But that's the fun part about the business. And no matter what, in real estate, when we're doing a transaction, most of the time our business is over in 1 to 2 months. Now, sure, we have buyers that it may take us 6 months to find them the right property. Last year, I had a property that it actually was a 10-acre farm, but the lady's husband had died, and she sort of went into a mental decline over the years, and so she became a hoarder. And I had known her. I'd never been to her house, but I had known her through the lumber industry. So I got that listing, and so we had to gut the house out. Fortunately, the trust had money to do it. And so there became all kinds of, I call them learning lessons involved in that transaction. But it was fun, and it did take me 9 months to get the thing sold, from the time that I first signed the contract to helping them. And I lined up a contractor for them, I lined up electricians, I lined up plumbers. And so then I became almost a general contractor to get that thing to market. But you learn those lessons, and then it's just another skill that you've put into your tool belt, and they all reap benefits every step of the way in the process of becoming a good, solid agent. Is all in the baby steps that you take in each transaction that you have. So I'd like to start with this. You all have your manual in front of you, and I will say that I've been doing these sessions 2 to 3 times a year, and this is the first time that I have ever presented this program under the buyers and sellers. Most of the time I do the buyer module. So I'm filling in at short notice for somebody else. So bear with me as I have to refer to my own manual here to see exactly what they want me to say. And I will say, and I'm going to turn off my phone here so that I don't keep getting interrupted, that I'm more for telling stories about actual experiences, because I believe that you have that manual and you can read it for yourself. But I think that stories help us along the way. They are cemented more, and then you can identify and pull those things out when you get out there in the real world yourself, with those kind of experiences that you'll say, oh yeah, I heard about this before. I think this is, and it gives you confidence in your ability. And that's why I have always taken a lot of the trainings. If I can just get one nugget out of every single training that I get, because in Keller Williams, you have the opportunity to have so much knowledge given to you that it's really hard to absorb it. So I just aim to learn something new every day, and not try to overwhelm myself in the whole process. So today we're going to start session 13, and this is qualifying our buyers and our sellers. So and let me see here at my screen. There we go. Those little dings are somebody that's joining us. So so today is the qualify, and I already said that. So okay, now this slide is probably one of the ones that is in every stage of doing this business, when we're making a new contact, the chart shows find the motivated, but I would have to say that the second step on here is classify the people as able, ready, and willing. We used to call it ready, able, and willing, but now we have it kind of rearranged that better fits our module, and that is able, because a lot of people might be ready, but they're not able, meaning they may not have their financing in order, or maybe they don't really know what they're looking for, or their credit score is not where it should be. So there are lots of things that can derail us, and so that category to me is just extremely important. And so then you can see the rest of this chart. That's just kind of flowing out what our agenda is for the day. So it says, and this is a quote by Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams: "Your number one job as an agent is to find ways to get in the path of motivated buyers and sellers." So I have a question to start with. So have most of you at least done one open house, or are you new enough that you haven't got into the open house process yet?
I've done 2 so far.
Okay, great. And have you got any leads from that make you feel as though you have somebody that's either an A, B, or a C person?
I didn't, because one of them was, I was just shadowing and there was 0 traffic, and the other one was pretty minimal. So I haven't got any leads from the open houses yet. They were kind of both like weird scenarios, but I have one planned out for about 10 days out now. So I think that one will be better.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I think that I started out doing open houses. I got my first transaction was with a seller, and I got this person as a contact because I had done 2 things in pre-marketing myself. And what I mean by that is that when I first started in real estate, I made out my mailing list of everybody that I knew, good friends, relatives, former coworkers, that sort of thing. And so I did a postcard announcement. And so I had my logo, my email address, website address, phone number, any kind of contact. And in my case, I was leaving a job that I had had 30 years as a wholesale lumber broker. So I just mentioned something about I've transitioned from being a wholesale lumber broker, so that people, that it was just for me a tie-in, and I just said I've moved to real estate, or whatever it was that I said. I don't remember my exact wording, but I spent a little bit of time crafting the words that I did for that. So I mailed that out in August. No, I mailed that out in July. I got licensed in June. I mailed my announcement in July. In August, I mailed out I had 200 contacts. And I mailed out to them a University of Oregon and an Oregon State. It's on the same magnet, sent out the football schedule as a refrigerator magnet. And this gentleman, and so nothing happened. And by December, this gentleman calls me, and he said, and I knew his wife quite well, and she had died like 3 or 4 months earlier, but she had battled cancer for 7 years. I had met the husband one time in 40 years, but he had received my magnet, and the conversation went like this: "Hi, Linda, this is Dale Knight. I'm looking at your football magnet." And so to me, that was the greatest aha. And it meant that marketing is a method to get to find our able, ready, and willing people within our sphere, and that's the people that we know. And it doesn't happen overnight. So don't get discouraged. And why do I tell you this story? Because things happen in baby steps. So he wanted me to tell him how to improve his house, that he wanted to sell it. So I went over, I gave him some advice, things like have your roof cleaned off, put on some moss kill. It had quite a bit of moss on there. Have your gutters cleaned, power wash these sidewalks and everything, because they had a lot of moss on them. And he did have a lawn lawn service, and I said, have fresh bark laid down. And so he did all of that. And in the course of all of that and inspecting the rooms and everything, I noticed that one window had a diagonal crack in it. And I said, you're going to have to get that ordered. So he did that, but it took like over a month for the window to arrive. Anyway, we had a couple of delays and we didn't list until February. And 2 days before the open house, I listed on a Thursday, had my open house on Saturday and Sunday, and it snowed. And I thought, oh my gosh, nobody's going to show up. Well, there was no snow 2 days later. I mean, it was on the yard and everything, but there was no snow impacting people coming. So it was raining instead. And after the first day of the open house, I had to go by, it was vacant, and I had done a little bit of minimal staging. At that point, I didn't have enough staging to do the whole house. So I did kitchen with just towels and a colored teapot. I put a couple chairs and a nice table and some artwork on one wall in the living room. It had a living room, family room. And then I put some artificial plants in the bathroom and some towels in both bathrooms and called it good. And so the first day, I get quite a few people in this rainy day, and they tracked water everywhere inside this house. So then that night I had to go buy an indoor rug to put at the front door. And on the second day, a lady came through, and it was pretty busy, and I had 2 people there, and both of them seemed pretty interested in the house. And I thought that they would, either one of them would be making an offer just by the rapport that I had developed with them. Well, the one lady, I followed up with her. It turned out she became a buyer client. We purchased a house for her mother and father, who were Italian, coming from Reno, but the mother didn't speak English. The father did speak English, but he had dementia. And so we bought this house for him, and it was a little tricky. But we bought that house for him. Then the sister from Vancouver had come down when I would show him a couple houses and such. She came down to view the houses as well. The next year I sold the sister a house. Then 5 years later, the mother and father both had passed away. So we had to sell that house. So it took 5 years from the time that they purchased it till the house was then sold again. So that became not just one transaction, but 2, plus the sister. And now the other sister, because there were 2, the other one is wanting to sell their house. So all of that generated from the original listing that I had to 3 transactions beyond that. So it was a total of 4 transactions, and it was about $1.5 million. Combined. And now when the other sister buys, and her husband had some health issues, so we tabled that for a little bit, but they're going to do a buy and a sell. So that will be another $1.5 million. And all of that generated from doing the first postcard notifying I was in real estate and who I was, so that, because in that case, that husband probably would not have known who I was when I first did the postcard mailing, and his wife was still alive at that time. But then when I sent the football magnet, then of course he got the connection and all of that. So all of that to say is that these baby steps that you take early on in your business, and you can restart your business anytime. If you reach a flat spell, you can pretend like you're starting over and then just do some of the basic steps and keep on going. But real estate, you don't always see the fruits of your labor in the beginning. Just know that it works. And if you follow the plan, it will work. So we're going to talk about finding the motivated. And my screen doesn't give me a full screen of this, so I don't know what it's saying below that. So bear with me while I take a peek at these notes here. So okay. It's funny when they do these prepared notes for, I have like 40 pages of notes, and I don't know why they think that during a presentation that you could be able to talk through 40 pages. Anyway, Okay. Finding the motivated. Okay, so one of the, and I kind of touched on this in my story earlier, is that the bulk of my business has been from my sphere, from referrals of my sphere and open houses. It's a rare occasion. I'm trying to think. I think I've only had one person that just found me on the internet. And they were an out-of-town buyer, and I bought them a house up the McKenzie River. And so that was a fun experience. But most of my business, they say here that your business is going to come from your sphere, your referrals, and prospecting. And I have done very little in the prospecting end because like right now I have 2 listings that I'm working on. They're under contract, but we're not ready for market yet. And one of them was a referral from my painter that has painted my house for years. And the other one was from somebody that between the mother and daughter, I've done 1, 2, 3, I've done 3 previous transactions with, and this is a referral to one of their other family members. So mine is really sphere and referrals. And my business is the last 2 or 3 years has been more seller, so more listings. I did have a couple years where I was really strong on buyers. So it's just a funny business how that all works. And I like doing both because when you're a listing agent, I think that you can get hardened to the difficulties that buyers have in finding the right house. So I do like doing both. So do you have any particular myths about how you find your buyers and sellers, or anything that I might be able to help you with in understanding where some of the things it's maybe not reality? So most all of you are muted. So is that muted by choice, or is that?
It's
You
by
muted.
choice.
Okay, all right, gotcha. I was thinking, did I not unmute you?
It seems to me that it's kind of being a little bit of being at the right place at the right time. I did an open house on one house and I think I got like 6 leads from it, but it was weeks that I did that open house, the same one. And so it just seems like either the right property or the right address or time.
Yeah, well, again, that gets back to that, is the buyers able, ready, and willing? You know, they might have 2 out of the 3, but not have the ability to do so. I think that the other thing that happens with open houses is that I think that they can be very discouraging. From the standpoint that you can get a lot of people through, and then sometimes when they do the sign-in sheet, and I started out asking everybody to sign the sign-in sheet. Then when we had COVID, we were required to have everybody sign in so we could do notifications if somebody turned up with COVID, and so we would notify anybody that had come through the open house. But you spend a lot of time at open houses, and you may feel like you're getting nowhere. And of course, the worst ones, I know one of you had mentioned earlier that you had 0 turnouts, and those are hard. But one of the things that you can do, and some agents do this, I have yet to do it, but some will take their laptops and then they'll do research and that sort of thing when they or send some emails out or whatever, do some paperwork while they are waiting for somebody. I just don't do that because then you've got to shut down everything so that it makes, when somebody does arrive, you don't want them to arrive thinking that this is like a no-show alley, for that this property's, you know, has just no buzz going about it. So I don't do that myself. I just, you know, have my phone if I feel the desire to, you know, do anything on, like, check Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I do that, but I try to keep myself focused in the moment. And I used to do them as 1 to 3 hours. I mean, one to 4 were my hours, like on Sundays. On Saturdays, I do it earlier in the day. I may start at 10 or 11. But now I've shortened it to 2 hours, and that's plenty of time for me to, especially if you have an open house that doesn't get a lot of visibility. And the visibility for a property that's been on the market a while and has had multiple open houses, it's just rare that you get very much traffic after the first 1 or 2 open houses that you have. It doesn't mean that you should give up having open houses on it, but you have to give it a rest so that you get a new batch of buyers that come along to take a look at it. The other thing about open houses is that when I said that I don't have everybody sign in, I kind of gauge the people as they're walking through. And so I start off by greeting them at the door, or yeah, I'm somewhat like inside the house, not right at the door, but I'm like 8 to 10 or 12 feet away from the door entrance. I welcome them in, and I identify myself as either the listing agent or I'm showing this property for the listing agent. And if they're savvy about having a buyer's agent separate from a listing agent, then that saves one step in helping to get that buyer to move more closely to yourself. Because a lot of people, and in the 9 years that I've been in the business, I have only transacted one transaction where I was both the buyer's agent and the listing agent, and that one never made it to the closing table. Their check was in escrow, but they decided that the house was too small and they wanted out. So they forfeited their escrow down payment of $2,000, and then I relisted the property. So I don't generally, it's just kind of a policy of my own, and you as an agent can make up your own mind that it's not illegal to represent both ends of the property transaction. I just think it's hard to represent in good faith both ends when you're trying to negotiate. So back to the how I greet these people. I finally got where I say, what brings you in today? Are you shopping for yourself or a family member? And sometimes I'll just say, are you shopping for yourself or are you one of the neighbors? And then that way I know if it's a neighbor that's, and they don't hesitate to say, oh no, I'm just looking, I live down the street. But that's good to know. And because they may just be looking to compare their own house or thinking about selling it. So they're just as important to develop a rapport with that nosy neighbor as it is somebody that may be a potential buyer. So I've changed my tactic over the years, and I make it more conversational rather than trying to get them in the beginning to jump right to signing in. And because the truth of the matter is, at least half of the people will not give you an accurate email address, and sometimes they give you phony phone numbers. And I know that Hannah Reno, who has had a lot of success in open houses, sometimes she'll do it with an iPad and have them enter their own, or else she'll read it back to them and say, I don't, because sometimes she'll say, well, she'll record it for them if she just asks them outright what their email address is. And then she says, let me read this back to you to make sure that I've got it correctly. And so, there's all kinds of, you can develop your own style with that and whatever your comfort level is. But I have found that it takes the stress off for both the person walking in the door, and you almost always get more information by asking the small questions. And somebody may say, well, no, I'm looking for this. I'm looking for a property for my son. And then your next question can be, well, how long have you been looking? So it makes it easier to ask questions and to keep them engaged in asking you questions back and forth.
Have you ever had a buyer's representation agreement signed right on the spot right there, or?
I've never tried it.
Okay.
you know, this buyer's representation agreement, although Keller Williams suggested that we have them, I only used them intermittently in the first probably 8 years that I was doing business. If I wasn't real sure of the person, if it wasn't somebody that I knew, then I would be more apt to then make a separate session with them, maybe take them to lunch or something like that. And I did that after I'd shown them some property. Then I pitched it that I'd like to have them sign an agreement, because that was my agreement as well as theirs. And the wife looked at the husband and she says, well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to do this on my own. And so they signed it right away. So, you know, that agreement is, some people like Hannah Reno, she's, you know, they that's just part of their presentation when they do the buyer consult to get them to sign that contract right then, or that agreement. So I think you have to kind of find your way, whatever you find comfortable. But trust me when I say that people will see a sign of weakness if you aren't confident in asking for that agreement to be signed. They'll get real wiggly with you. So kind of have your confidence level up when you're asking them to sign it. And my pitch to them always is that I want to do a good job for you, and I want to know that you're in this as much as I'm in this. And that I promise you I'm going to be able to find you that house that you want. And so I kind of get their commitment at the same time. And but I think that they're important. I mean, I have been stiffed a number of times after showing people multiple houses, and then they did, like this one gentleman, I met him at an open house, and he just would not leave me alone. Even at the open house, he wouldn't move away so other people could ask me questions. And so he was real insistent on getting me to work with him. So I showed him houses, including I drove him once down to Myrtle Creek, which is an hour and a half down, hour and a half back. I drove and met him in Lebanon to look at a house. And then he ultimately ended up, there was somebody that he knew that he was helping the person clean out this house. It was a house that belonged to his mother. And so he bought it seller direct. They never even went on the market. But later, I think he wished me, he just kind of disappeared from the earth. He told me he was having some medical problems and this and that, and it was all BS. And so at New Year's, he sends me a text wishing me a happy New Year and all of that. And let me back up another step further that was kind of creepy, is that one morning he texts me at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and he says, hey, I'm out here, and there was this pizza place that's just down at the end of one of the streets that I live near. And he said, and I had told him that I lived in the River Road area because I wanted to show him property out here. And I said, I've lived here for a long time. So he was parked not very far from my house, and he said, I thought I'd come by. And I'm like, that's creepy. And I wasn't even dressed yet. I was sitting at my laptop drinking coffee and doing my morning RMLS search. And so it's like, I don't want you in my house. And so long story short, he texted me over New Year's and said something about, just wanted to wish me a happy New Year. And there was something that he said that made me realize that he was in a house. And so I texted him right back. No, I called him and I said, hey, did you buy a house? And he goes, oh yeah. I said, did you buy the one from that guy whose niece was a real estate agent? And he goes, yeah. Because he said to me, I'm going to have to use a different agent if I buy it from this guy. And I go, well, you don't have to do that. I said, I mean, she's working for her uncle. Why would you want to do that? So anyway, but I wasted a lot of time on that guy, and he kind of creeped me out at the same time. So all that said is that we get smarter the longer that we're in the business. And I think when you don't have anything kind of activity going on, that you'll go further than what you should in servicing an account for the volume of stuff that you show. And at that time, we weren't doing the buyer broker, even though it was a suggestion to do it. Most agents weren't doing it. So I hope that helps. If you have any further questions about that, don't hesitate to ask me.
I have a question.
Sure.
So how does it work, like sending the RMLS or sending like properties, if I find them on like Redfin or Realtor or something like that, to somebody that you don't have a contract with? Is that illegal or legal, or how does that work?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't send somebody anything except for a client full report from the RMLS, because that has your contact information on it. It'll print right out at the top your name and phone number, and they can get back to you directly. So I don't like to go to anybody like Zillow or any of those people, their websites, and promote them when we have our affiliation with our RMLS. So that's just me. But I think that that's the professional way to do it. It has all the taxes listed on there, and it's a way for you to follow it. Illegal? No. But I think that randomly sending them, unless you know that there's a buy-in from this person, I wouldn't say don't do it. But sometimes you can send them a lot of information and they aren't committed to you. They might even be talking to another agent, and you would have no idea. So I would ask them the question up front before I started sending them houses. Would you like me to stay in contact? And I think before I even started that, I would ask them if they have a buyer agreement with any other agent. And that's a question when you have open houses. If somebody's talking to someone, talking to you about buying a house and everything, one of the first questions that I ask is, are you working with another agent? Because they very well can be, and so they don't necessarily understand how real estate works. We think that buyers do and sellers understand the whole process, but they don't always. So at some point, sometimes you have to say, you just have to ask the question. You've got to clarify.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead.
If you ask if they're working with someone else and they say no, do you just kind of take them at their word? You don't have to prove. What if they are working with someone and you find that out later?
Well, there's a little saying, and it's not a very nice one, but I learned it early on when I was in real estate at some meeting, and somebody says, well, buyers are liars. And sometimes it does turn out to be true. And so just because you ask it doesn't mean that they're going to give you the straight answer. And that's the unfortunate truth about, it's just human nature. And they may just not want to tell you. Maybe they don't feel comfortable, or they don't want to disappoint you. There's any number of reasons that they may not be totally honest with you. When we first get started in our business, one of the things that we're trying not to do is we don't want to offend people, because we want to develop a business. And so it's a tough one. Coming through an open house, I still use for my sign-in sheet. It's one that I downloaded from Keller Williams website early on. And I have that out there on a clipboard. I have a little sign. And if any of you want the template for it, just email me after class. And before the class is over, I'll give you my email address and phone number. But I have a little thing. I ordered it on Etsy, and it's just the template, and it has the word sign, and it has an arrow. So it points down to my clipboard. And I have these printed off copies of just sign-in sheets that Keller Williams developed, and it just has their name, their address, their phone number, the email address. Asks the question, are you looking to buy or sell? I forget exactly how it's worded. And it says, do you have an agent? And if they circle yes, then the next line over to the right says agent's name. And if I look down at it, and this has happened more times than not, I've asked them if they don't fill in the agent's name, but they say they're working with someone. I just ask them to fill in the agent's name, because it is a friendly business from the standpoint that you can meet other agents. It may be somebody that you've worked with before, and so you could say something nice about their agent. And so it's just important. And one time I've had more than one occasion when somebody's left like their water bottle there, they've left prescription sunglasses behind. I find articles, and so then I go through my list and I call back people before I leave because somebody has left something. So that form helps answer a lot of questions. And so when people walk in, oftentimes what I do when I get them, if they seem to be pretty approachable, and when I ask them if they're looking for themselves or if they're a neighbor, then I say, well, would you mind signing my sign-in sheet? And then I say to them, don't worry, I'm not going to spam you with a lot of emails. And so it just depends on, you just develop your own language with it. But I would say 50% of the people are willing to sign in, and others will look down, they'll see the sign-in sheet, and they're afraid they're going to get a bunch of phone calls, and so they don't want to sign it. So, but I make an attempt to find out if they're, if they say that they're looking, and then I just remember that some of the questions that are the easiest ones to ask them. So if they say, yeah, we're just looking, and they'll say, well, how long have you been looking? Are you looking in this neighborhood? What's important to you in a house? And because then you may have some other house that's similar to the one that they're looking at that they may not be aware of. And you say, oh, well, have you looked at such and such? And now I don't arm myself with a lot of that information, but again, just having the ease with having a few questions that are your tool belt questions so that you can initiate conversation will really help you a lot. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, let's move on and see what they have. Okay, so this is how buyers find their agent. And you can see that the buyers and first-time buyers and all buyers is referrals from families and friends, basically. Families, friends, neighbors, people they work with. And then from there on, then the percentages decline. So, and then you get down here to the very bottom, it says visited an open house, only 4%. But backing up to the story that I told you in the beginning, where it was my first listing and I had a lot of activity on a rainy February day, and the lady that stopped in, then I ended up doing, I've done 4 transactions with them. One, culminated like a couple of months later, and they've become good friends. And so they, those people, when they have good experiences, will refer you to other people. So while this statistic seems really low, and yes, it's low, but it still produces. So here it says one of the things inquired about a property that they saw online, but they still have to have contact with you beforehand, unless you're the listing agent, for this to even make any sense. Now, this website thing's kind of interesting. Right now, my website is down. I'm switching people that are handling it. And so I've been in transition. I've got a few things bugs that I've got to work out. And this listing that I got, it was a referral from my painter. She said she looked me up. And I'm thinking to myself, with the exception of looking me up on Google, how is she finding me when I don't have a website up? And I'm sure he wouldn't have had my website information to get her. But anyway, she says, but I saw that you worked with senior citizens because I have my senior real estate specialist certification. And I would say that 50% or better, maybe it's even a larger number than that, of my business is senior citizens. And it makes sense because 55% of all of the buyers and sellers in today's market are baby boomers. So they're, from people that are in their 55 and older category. And there's a lot of people that are in their 80s. I've got a lady that's in my neighborhood. I sold a house across the street from her. And she's 96 years old and still mows her own lawn. And she goes, I know I need to sell, but I'm just not ready. It's expensive to live in those retirement centers. And finally, I got to the bottom of it about a year ago. And I said, I have people, because she has a basement that's full of things that she needs to go through. And of course, she's just a procrastinator like all of us are when they have a lot of stuff that, really needs to be thinned out. And I said, I have people that can do that for you and help you, that can sell some of it, donate some of it, but, pick out what you want to keep and then let somebody else handle the rest of it. And, but then it came out that she says, well, and she has a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house with a basement on a half-acre lot. It's a corner lot. It's a corner lot. And she goes, somebody who will buy my house is just going to tear it down. Now, where she got that idea, I have no idea. She has all new houses in a side street, but they're right up against Northwest Expressway and the trains and everything like that. And so I don't know if that influenced her thinking, but sometimes people have crazy thoughts in their head about why they won't sell. And so she's like, well, no, they're going to tear my house down. I go, no, they're not. So anyway, it's kind of funny. All right. So how sellers found their agent. Really, the percentages are a little bit less, but still the largest percentage is going to be from your sphere, friends, coworkers, neighbors, relatives. Secondly, they use the agent in a previous transaction. And those are your 2 highest percentages. Then we drop down to, let me see if I can find anything in these notes that they gave me. No, point out. Okay, so I don't see anything there. Now, have all of you, are you trying to familiarize yourself with the Command website?
Yes.
Are you finding it daunting?
Not particularly. I mean, everything seems to be laid out very well. I haven't gotten scared by it yet.
Well, when I first started, they were only thinking about Command. And so it's had, a number of iterations and it's vastly improved. I am not a Command expert. I do have a transaction coordinator. I operate as a solo agent. So I don't spend the time on Command that I could to make my business grow. And I just wanted to give it a plug that it is, they've got a lot of things that you can do for free on Command by your email campaigns. You can create invitations, you can create some flyers, you can create mailers. So they've spent a ton of money developing it, and it really is a good system. The only thing that I would say is that you can really get bogged down and spend a ton of time on developing things. And if I would give you any advice in working through it, is just go in there and go through and see who's done something that has a big file that you can just copy it and just change the information for yourself. Because doing a lot of detail work can be the enemy of your business. I'm waiting for my screen so I can let this person.
Is there a charge for all of that?
No.
No?
No, that you're already paying for it in your office fees. You'll see there's like a $50, it says website or something like that. And so it's all, you're kind of already being charged for it and you can't get away from it. So it's there, it's in your fees already.
Is that true with the 36 steps or the 18 steps or this?
Yeah, the 36 touch programs.
So you
Yeah.
just change the information in those to you and there's no extra charge or anything?
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you were doing a mailer, then of course, I mean, like a postal mailer, then that cost would be to you, but the development of the product itself, you would do on command. And they have various campaigns and that sort of thing that you can use. So yeah, I do a little bit different system. I mentioned that I did the postcard in the very beginning where I sent out the announcement that I was in the real estate business. And I would without a doubt suggest that you do that mailer so that people know that you're in business. And don't forget to include family members, aunts, uncles, cousins. I don't care if they live out of town, because you can get a referral. They can, if say they're in Kansas City, you have an aunt in Kansas City and she doesn't know a real estate agent, and you can even put a byline on your postcard. Like, if you're out of state, I have a large referral system within Keller Williams. I can find you an agent. I can interview them for you. And I've done that multiple times. And I'll go online to it, and there's a referral system on there. I don't know, I can't remember where it's located, but I've used it multiple times. So everybody that you know that knows that you're a good person and that has experience with you that want to help you. Even if they don't want to help you, send it to them, because you never know when somebody's going to refer you, and they won't know you're in business if you don't tell them. So to me, that's a biggie. But I started to tell you about what I do. So when I first started, there was a lady, her name is Trenda Lovett, and she has a business called Marketing and Design. And she used to have, before COVID, she had an office in the Keller Williams Eugene office. And so she did my business cards. She took my professional photo. She can design my signature block. And it's like 15 or 20 bucks for her to design my signature block on my emails. And every time that I get a different certification, she has to change my template for, so I have a accredited buyer's rep. I have my senior real estate specialist. I have a staging certification. So the people, it makes a difference to people. But so she does that. She also has a monthly mailer. This only works if you're in Lane County. But she does a monthly mailer. She gives you two choices. It's a postcard. It goes out to your sphere. She ships in bulk mail. And so that's less than your regular 73 cents per stamp. And you have to have 200 to go out at a random, like when I did my announcement, I had to have 200 people. And it wasn't that hard to come up with the 200. I thought it would be, but it really wasn't. And but if you have less, if you only have 50 or 100 people, then she just mails it with another group of some other agent. So it's just the way that the bulk mailing system works at the post office. So she gives you two choices a month. And so it might be, you can offer your clients a free car wash, or you can offer them a frozen yogurt. And so she mails these coupons out, and it's a postcard. It has, on the back side, it has your picture and your contact information. And each month you change what you're going to say on that mailer. So it might say, something about, like one I did not too long ago was, notifying people that, because people think, well, 7% interest, it's high. Well, that's because we had 3% interest rates, you know, right around the time of COVID and everything. And there was, you know, it hadn't been that low since the 50s for financing a house. And so that was unrealistic. And so I gave them the statistic that the average over the last 50 years, the interest rate average is 7%. So it isn't out of the norm. And so it kind of dispels a myth that buyers and sellers have, that interest rates are vastly affecting the market. So, so I change that every time. But then when the client uses yours, like gets the free car wash, then I have to pay, I think it's like I think maybe it's $2.50 or $5. So if the car wash is $10 and it costs me $5, and she'll send me a bill after all of those have been redeemed. Percentage wise, car washes probably get about 25% of the people that I mail out to actually uses the car wash. Some of these other things, like a Subway sandwich and things like that, and the little mini pizzas, those get a lot of people that use them too. But if those people that are using it and actually waiting for your postcard to arrive to see what you're going to offer that month, they have favorites out of that, and they look for it, and they remember you as the real estate agent. And so it does pay off in the long run to keep that continual input for people. So I do that, and then at the end of the year in December, I don't send out the coupons for like a free car wash or whatever. I send them a refrigerator mount calendar magnet. And so in theory, they're going to have it on their refrigerator or filing cabinet, something metal, for the entire year. And so that way they have to see your face. Okay, so let's see where we're at. At this point, I haven't exactly followed the script here. So anything that is a surprise to you that I've said thus far, or any questions that you might have at this point?
I like the what you said about the open house, about having conversations to get them to just talk, not necessarily yes or no questions, but that was good. I hadn't really heard that before, so.
Yeah, I think that the open houses when you're first starting can be kind of a scary situation. And of course, the first one that I did was at my own listing. So I was very familiar with that listing. And so I could answer all the questions. And so it wasn't that hard. But I think if you're not doing your own listing and you're just doing a cold turkey, doing an open house, you really have to have a few little things that build your confidence before you go in. And but yes, conversation and particularly, you know, like the asking them how long they've been looking at, what neighborhoods that they're looking at, and you'll get a real good feel if they want to talk to you or not. And if they kind of give you just a short answer and walk on by, I leave them alone, because you're not going to capture those people if they don't want to be captured, and I let them go. And I don't follow them around. I pretty much stay in the same location. And I do that for safety reasons, because I do most of the open houses by myself. But they don't want somebody to follow them around. And if I'm in the same location, I know who's come in. And so then I know if somebody, you know, has lingered back there. Again, this is for safety reasons. So I want to know that that I don't have somebody locked in there when I'm closing up the doors. So, but yes, just being free and easy with and being conversational will really help you a lot in your confidence. And it helps those people that are coming through your door to feel as though they're not being sold something.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so this is, let's see if I can find this. I'm probably a few pages behind in my 41 pages that they want me to talk about. Okay. So in this, so they're just talking a little bit here about the ability for people to be able, ready, and willing in the form of what can be some of their obstacles. So I mentioned before credit and that sort of thing, but maybe they need to save for a down payment. And maybe they're a first-time home buyer. If you go to enough of these like continuing ed classes and that sort of thing, or go to these panels that are offered by the brokerage that you're a member of, you can start to collect people that make an impression on you. And I remember that one of the very first it was held at Man Mortgage here in Eugene, and Tanya Torres was the loan officer, but somebody else gave the class, and it was a class on rehab loans. And rehab loans are something that people pay a couple of percent over and above what their normal interest rate would be for that lender to advance you the money to be able to do the restoration of your property. And so I had no idea that those existed. So I went to this class, and long story short, she first of all, she speaks Spanish. She has rehab loans, which not everybody does. And one of the beautiful parts about working with her is that she works weekends. And one day I was at an open house. I was doing it for another agent, and it was busy. And it was busy because it wasn't even in a particularly good neighborhood, but it was an entry-level house. And so I had stopped at a neighbor at the end of the street, and there was no place to put my open house sign. So I went and knocked on their door, and I said, would you mind if I put my sign in your yard for 2 hours? And so he said, sure. And I start to walk away, and then he has a question. He goes, and he comes back out of his door and he goes, hey, what house are you, do you have an open house at? And so I gave him the number, and he says, well, how much is it? And I told him, and he said, well, I have a niece that's she's a first-time home buyer. And I said, well, come on down. I'm just setting up. And so come on down and take a look at it. So he did. And she comes to my open house. First he videotaped it, and then he calls her up. She comes down, and the place is packed with people coming in. And so she says, I'm going to make an offer on this house. And I said, have you talked to a mortgage lender? And she said, no. And she clearly didn't know the process. So I said, hang tight just a second. And I had Tanya's phone number in my phone. I said, Tanya, are you in front of your computer? She says, I sure am. I said, okay, I'm going to send you a client, and she's going to call you in a few minutes. And so I need for you to tell me if she's qualified, or tell her, and that because she wants to make an offer. So it turned out that she wasn't, she thought she was ready, but she wasn't able. She had some credit cards that she had to get paid off before she was going to be a good candidate. But then Tanya had some good rates and some good packages for a first-time home buyer. So that house didn't work for her, but it was a huge asset for me as a buyer's agent to have her on my list, to be able to call her that day and get something going for this young buyer. And it was a real huge aha moment for her, because her monthly payment was going to go up from the payment that she was paying for rent. But in the long run, it takes somebody else like a mortgage lender to show them how they're not going to build any asset by paying somebody else rent. And so anyway, those are advantages so anytime that you have somebody that's doing something new, so if you attend maybe a class, a continuing ed class on mold remediation. So that might be mold and mildew that you have in an attic that was caused by a leaky roof. And so maybe your buyer has a home inspection and it reveals that. And so the listing agent is the one representing the seller that would have to order that, but you would put it on a repair addendum to ask for mold remediation. But as an agent, It's going to be helpful for you to know who do you call if you're the listing agent, because you want to service your seller. So accumulating those, I call it an asset in my toolkit, that you need to have contacts. So you need to have good plumbers, you need to have an electrician that'll answer your phone and that sort of thing. So
So with that said, who does Tanya work for?
Mann, M-A-N-N, Mann Mortgage. And she's here in Eugene.
Sweet.
But she, remember I said earlier that I sold a house that they found, the buyers found me on the internet, and how they actually found me was that they had bought and sold a property over in Bend, and they were a couple with a couple of young boys, but they had they'd moved to California, so they were an out-of-state buyer, but they researched me through Keller Williams. And so when we got into contract with them, first of all, we made an offer on the property, and we got beat out because they had two properties side by side and somebody else bought both of them, cash offer kind of thing. Well, it fell out because of the home inspection. So the agent came back to me and said, hey, are your buyers interested? Well, we had written an escalation clause because we knew that there was another offer out there. So we wrote an escalation clause and everything. Well, when it fell out of contract, I said to the buyers, I said, look, I think that this house, I just don't think that this house is in as bad a shape as what, you know, to fall out of contract because of condition. And yes, maybe the buyer did get cold feet. Maybe the other property was because there was two properties they were buying at once. So it just so happened, because neither one of the husband or wife had seen the property when we made the offer the first time, I said, look, I don't feel comfortable. One of you've got to fly up here and look at this property. I don't feel comfortable writing an offer on it on your behalf until you look at it. And I'd sent all kinds of pictures, and it was a 90-minute drive for me just to go up there and look at it for them. But so I met them up there. The husband flew out, and they'd bought several other homes before, so they weren't newbies at buying. And so when it came time to write the offer, I asked the agent for the home inspection, and most of the time, because that is paid by the buyer, they don't offer it. Well, most listing agents won't ask for a copy of it because they know that they have to reveal the conditions. So if they had like a poor foundation or whatever, they're going to have to reveal that to all other agents and buyers that look at the property. So most people will tell you not to ask for the home inspection, but this listing agent had the home inspection. So I said, well, can you send me that home inspection? And because they were asking us to buy it, you know, and they were coming back to us. So I just thought, what the heck, I'm going to ask for it. I don't care, because we'd have to buy one anyway. So my people didn't pay the $800 or $700, whatever it was, to have a home inspection, because we got the one for free that the previous buyer had paid for. So I sent it to Tanya. And so they were wanting us to get a rehab loan. So I went directly to Tanya. And so she worked through it. And then at the time, Tanya says, I don't think we need a rehab loan for that. I just don't think it's that bad. So she did not, because that saved my buyers 2% on the loan. And then in the end, we ran into all kinds of problems in getting people to get up there to repair it and to make any kind of changes. There was something about a light fixture that the appraiser didn't like. And so somebody had lost the key. They didn't get the key back in the lockbox, and her guy crawled through a window to do it. I mean, the whole thing was just kind of a funny story, but that woman will go to the mat for you. So I can't say enough good things about her, because she's awesome. So back to our ready, willing, and able, or able, ready, and willing buyers. Down payments can be a problem. They may not have enough money to do it. I mentioned before that their credit may not be where it needs to be. And sometimes you'll find that they have mortgage liens on the property. Maybe somebody liened the property, maybe they took out a second and they spent it and bought new cars or whatever, and kind of conveniently forgot that they had that mortgage lien. And, you know, so all kinds of things will come up in their credit worthiness about indebtedness that can keep them from being able to buy. So our job then is always to find the method to get to those people, to find out who our clients are. So have you done any work with your A, B, and C buyers? So a classification for an A buyer, and this is like if you were making a list, and this kind of goes into how much time are you going to spend with these clients. So your A buyer is going to be somebody that's going to be able to make a move within like 30 days or less. And so those are the people that you want to start showing them houses right away. But again, you have to know that they have the ability to buy. So when you start showing buyers properties, I do not show buyers properties until they get me a pre-approval from a lender that says that they can buy something in the $400,000 range or $600,000, whatever it is. Because you can waste a lot of time, especially if they haven't. If you get into a situation where you've got more than one offer that's being made on a property, and let's just say they just fell in love with this property, and there can be great disappointment, and they can blame you when it's not your fault, when they can't participate in making the offer on this house that they just fell in love with. Because when you have a multiple offer situation, the listing agent is going to want to have that pre-approval letter, and you need to attach that with your offer so that they know that that is a sound buyer coming to their property. So
did you ask for a copy of the pre-approval letter?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you can justify it by saying that you'll need it for the documentation, or you just can ask for it because you need to.
Well, pretty much anymore, all of the listing agents ask for a pre-approval letter. And sometimes they'll say, if you can't, if you really want it, if you had good faith, and let's just say that you knew this person and you knew that they had the finances to be able to buy the house, that won't hold up in terms of a listing agent actually accepting your word for it, unless maybe they know you. But I have written it into the contract that that they will get that pre-approval letter within, 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever. And that's why it's helpful to have people like somebody like Tanya Torres at Man Mortgage that works weekends when most of that activity happens, that can get you a pretty instant pre-approval.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just say the tricky thing about pre-approvals. Pre-approvals and pre-qualification is two different things. Pre-qualification means that it's gone through an underwriting process that digs deeper into to what this person really has in terms of liabilities against their credit. And for example, I had a lady come up from Berkeley, California, and she came for 4 days, and she was looking for a specific type of house. And in that 4 days, she came with a pre-approval letter. So we found a house, and she wanted to make it. The one that she was most excited about was really in poor condition on the outside, and she did not have the funds to be able to fix up the house. It was cute, but it was old, and it had a lot of deferred maintenance. But she came with a pre-approval letter. And I said at that time, and Keller Williams still has it. I've just switched over and started dealing with local lenders, but Keller Mortgage at the time, and they've changed their name. I can't remember. I think it's called Keller Loans now. But they had a promotion package where it was worth about $5,000. So they did not charge there's 3 different fees. There's your underwriting fee. There's kind of like a pre-qualification fee, origination fee, underwriting fee, and I forget what the third fee is. And that's about $3,500 there that all loans will charge you. Most all, I'd say 98% of the loans will. Some of them have special deals where they'll waive some fees, but that's how they make their money. And so secondly, in this package that Keller Mortgage had, they didn't have the origination fee, underwriting, and whatever that other fee was, and they would give you at closing $1,000 credit. Well, that would offset the price of an appraisal, and an appraisal is about $800. So in total, Keller Mortgage was going to be about a $5,000 benefit, cost savings to this lady. And her pre-approval letter came from some bank in California. Now, I didn't bother to call this guy on a Saturday to ask him about her legitimacy. So I said, why don't you, because she was staying in a motel, and I said, why don't you go online, and here's my app. I shared the app. All of you have, I'm sure it probably still exists with Keller Loans, because I get emails from them. I just don't open them. But I shared the connection, and it was linked directly to me. But at that time, Keller Loans had their own underwriting department. So they would, they would say somebody was good for a loan, it had already gone through their quick underwriting department. So it was much better than having just a pre-approval. So she arrived with a pre-approval letter to buy a house for $350,000, and Keller Mortgage emailed me and said, we're not going to be able to loan this lady any money. And I asked them why, and they said, well, we can't tell you. That's confidential. You'll have to have your buyer tell you. So I called her up and I said, okay, I got an email from Keller Mortgage and they're not able to loan you. What's the scoop? Well, it turns out that she had a lien by the Internal Revenue Service to the tune of $160,000. It was for unpaid taxes. So she couldn't buy a house, but she had a pre-approval letter. And there was this tricky thing that Keller Mortgage did tell me ultimately, is that those IRS liens, they show up in the county in which they were recorded. But, you know, I was out of state. I mean, her dealing with me was out of state. So it didn't show up when somebody just did a cursory pre-approval.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that was a big aha. It was very embarrassing because we actually wrote an offer on it because she had that pre-approval letter, and we got our offer accepted. And it was a nightmare. It took 10 days before we used up our whole inspection period trying to get her pre-approved. And I was in contact with the other agent the whole time, but eventually the deal fell through, and that lady to this day has never bought a house because she's got to pay off that loan or that lien. So pre-approvals are not as good as pre-qualifications, but you have to have a pre-approval letter that at least shows that she's got a lender that's willing to loan her the money, him or her. So yes, you need to get them. If you're going to write an offer, then you need to have those. So I just ask all of my buyers when I first start working for them to have, if they don't have a loan officer, then I give them 2 or 3 to choose from.
So what if okay, so I have a buyer and I know she's going to buy and she's really antsy to buy, but she does not want them to check her credit. So I have given her Envoy and then a local guy here, and she went on AI and it told her that neither one of them was the best interest rate. And she's telling me it's all about interest rates, but she won't go get pre-qualified or any of that. And she's really, she's very reputable and she's done a lot of financing and she does a lot of financing. So she doesn't want to do it before.
Okay. Well, that's her decision, but if she gets into a, if she's gonna write an offer, then, and if the listing agent requires a pre-approval, and if it's a listing that just comes on and it's a hot listing, then she could miss out on the house that she really likes. So it's risky on her part. It's like, how serious are you? Now, I understand what she's saying about she doesn't want it pulled on her credit, but if she's got a good credit score, it's not gonna do much. It's not gonna have significant impact to her credit score. And if you could even shop for a loan, when you have like 2 or 3 different lenders do a credit run or a credit check on you for pre-approval, like if you're shopping for rate, then the algorithms and the like Equifax and all those people, and Heather Ducker at CMG, I think is the name of her, they just changed their name, loans, they I think she said that it's like they'll count if they have multiple pulls on your credit during like a 30 or 45 day period of time when you're trying to buy a house. They just treat it as one pull because they know when you're looking for $350,000 or $500,000 from 3 different people that it's all for the same purchase.
Okay.
So maybe it would be, and if you want, I can give you somebody's name. I mean, Heather's the one that talks about that a lot, but do you have a lender that you have that you
I don't. I gave her the one that local here, but she told me there was something that he said that she didn't like, so she doesn't want to work with him. And I don't know what that was. So I
okay.
think it was the interest rate, basically. I think it came down to that.
Huh. Well, if they hadn't done a credit pull, because sometimes if you have really super high credit, you can get a better interest rate. So are you in Eugene?
No, I'm in Roseburg.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know any of the lenders in Roseburg, but let me.
But she's okay with going out of town because she's looking on the internet. She's asking AI who's got the best interest rates.
Well, she needs to talk to somebody that will talk her through the interest rate part and some of these different deals that they have.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I think she needs somebody that will consult with her.
That's what I think, but I don't know anybody yet, so.
Okay, all right, I'll give all of you the same person, and she's this lady's got all kinds of trainings and she's super smart, and so okay, her name is Heather Ducker, D as in dog, like Oregon Ducks, Ducker.
Okay.
Her phone number is 541-305-6354. Her email is h.ducker@cmghomeloans.com. And I wish that I could tell you what all of her certifications are and trainings, because she's passed, but anyway, she's one of the very best. And if you want a second one, and there's nothing wrong with people shopping lenders. Here's another one that is, I saw this lady, and I've referred her to a lot of people also. Her name is Ladell, Ladelle, Ladell White. And for those of you that you're not in the Eugene area, these lenders they work all over the state. So Ladell White, she works for Guild, Guild Mortgage. And this phone number is 541-343-1995. And her email is L White guildmortgage.net. And just tell them that you in either case with Heather or Liddell, I would just shoot them off an email and tell them what you're dealing with, and tell them that you were in a training and I was given a training and that I gave them your name to them, and tell them about your client, and then ask your client if you can refer them, refer a couple of other lenders to her. Because it's better to have a referral than it is to trust somebody off the internet.
I agree.
And so I can speak highly for all three of those women, Tanya, Liddell, and Heather. But if she's wanting anything tricky, either Liddell or Heather are vastly overqualified in their fields. So very, very, you know, they've got it handled. So
Thank you.
yes, you're very welcome. All
Heather
right.
did a class for us back in June, so that's good.
Say that again.
Heather did one of our classes back at the 1st of June, so
Oh,
you've
yeah.
heard from her, I think. Yeah, she's great.
Awesome. Yeah, no, she is. She's a great lady. I love her. She's one of the first lenders that I met when I was in the business. Okay, so let's see. Focus becomes increasingly possible in the direct proportion to how clear you are about what you want, when you want it, and what you must do to get it. Yeah, that's probably true. You know, I think in this business, because real estate in the beginning, it sounds so easy. And it's not that it's incredibly difficult, but it does have a lot of steps to it. So you're with the right company. If I could say anything after all of this today, is to give you the confidence that they have your back. Our principal brokers are just great. If you have any kind of hesitation about something and making sure that you stay on track, they're just great. So, okay, let's see. Okay, so I have got, because I'm not totally familiar with this thing, let's see what they say about our B level buyers. So it says here that your A buyers, they want to know what listings are available right now that fit their home wish list. And so when you're working with buyers, that is something that you want. You've got to have kind of down their must-haves and can't stand and that sort of thing, neighborhoods and designs and that sort of thing. Your B buyers, it says they often need different messages such as how to save more for a down payment or information about changes in interest rates that could impact their buying power. Again, lining up your buyers with a lender, that's just another one of the tools in your tool belt, because they're going to have a lender. Then let's see, C buyers might be interested in potential changes in current neighborhoods, such as new restaurants, shopping options, and road construction. Honestly, I have never used any of those as something that might work for a buyer. If I know about something, I might offer it, but I have never had anybody ask me about any of those things.
How about schools?
You know, I haven't had people ask me about schools either. And, you know, it's pretty easy to check out the quality of schools. So it's pretty easy to do that online. There's all kinds of references out there. So no, I've not once had somebody ask me about schools. And I know that they tell us all that that's going to be, you know, when you do your open houses, become familiar with the schools, how far away they are and that sort of thing. Nobody's ever asked me. And I've done tons of open houses. Doesn't hurt to be prepared, but I just don't get asked them. Let's see. It says we use the same buyer qualification process for all buyers and the same seller qualification for all sellers. And we have to make sure that we stay within the fair housing regulations. And it says, Go ahead.
Do you think, with regards to open houses, that the questions have changed with the use of the internet? Like they can do so much on their own. Like if they're not asking about schools, it's because they've already found that information out. Like, have you noticed the trend in the last however many years?
Well, no, not so much. But because when I started 9 years ago, they were all over Zillow. They were, so that's been around during the time that I've been in long enough that I haven't noticed that change. But one of the things that I learned early on that, people will say, well, Zillow says, this is particularly true with sellers. Well, Zillow says that my house is worth $800,000. Well, I had that happen in one of my first listings. And I look it up and yep, that's what Zillow said. And I go and do a drive-by on the house and I'm like, there is no way this house is worth $800,000. And I ended up selling that house for $275,000. So one of the things that I always say to people when they say, well, Zillow says this house is blah, blah, blah. I say, you do realize that Zillow has never seen the inside of a house. And then they'll laugh. And I'll say, they just work off algorithms. And so they may compare that house, this house with the square footage. And for example, one of the listings that I have coming up, when it sold like 20 years ago, they included the basement square footage. Well, we don't do that in Lane County. In Portland, it's important, and they include it on every listing if it has a basement. In Lane County, it's rare that they list the basement, and in an appraisal, they don't give you much value for that basement. But they're great for storage and that sort of thing. But in the previous listing on this one that I have, they included the square footage. And so that was 450 square feet. Well, that's a lot when you're comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges. It would be the reality. So, yeah, but no, I really haven't. But when I'm talking to sellers specifically, that's where I think that the internet conversation comes up more. Because in prepping their property, like this one listing that I have, I did a drive. Well, first of all, I looked on Google Images and I couldn't see the house. So I looked it up on the RMLS and I saw the previous listing, and it was a cute little cottage style 1937 house. But in its current condition, the seller probably had never cut anything. And so there were bushes and stuff in front. You couldn't even see the house. So we just spent $2,500, or she did. I lined up a landscape crew that went in and cleared out blackberries and cut down excess trees and everything so you could actually see the house. Made a huge difference. But I tell sellers that just know that statistically they say 92% of the time that the first look at a house is going to be on the internet. And so I always say to people, just remember that somebody's going to be most likely is going to be looking at your house on a cell phone. I had one lady, well, I got a listing in Dallas, Oregon, which is about an hour and 30 minutes from Eugene. And it was under contract with a different agent, but it had been on the market for 120 or 140 days, almost 4 months. And I happened to know the sister of this person. And so that her husband had died a year earlier, and she was confined to she had MS and she was confined to a wheelchair. And so when I looked at it, the current agent had not listed that it was a wheelchair accessible house, which was a big selling point in that house. And the bathrooms were wheelchair accessible. They were big and she could get her wheelchair under the counter. She could, walk in, shower and all of that. But the negative was it wasn't staged. It was a bare house and it had, I call it old grandma style, even though I'm a grandmother, old grandma style lacy curtains that were hideous. And it had 4 walls that were painted bright orange. and it was her husband, it was a color of their favorite football team. And so one of my first conversations with her, she said, how soon could you list my house if I cancel with this other agent? And I said, as long as it takes me to get a U-Haul truck rented. So and so she said, okay, fine, I'm going to fire this other agent. So she did, and I called my painter and I said, hey, and he worked for somebody else, but I said, hey, I'll give you $500 if you'll drive up to Dallas for me and paint 4 walls. That's all you have to do is 4 walls. And he goes, man, I'll do that, because he wasn't probably making $100 in a day. And the people that bought the house, I sold it in 4 days. And the people that bought it told their agent, man, they really did a lot of work to that house. The only thing we did was take down the curtains. I staged it, and we painted those orange walls. And but people were looking at it on the internet, and it looked awful. And so sometimes I'll say to my sellers, like, I had this one lady who had a lime green kitchen. And I mean, it was shockingly, she's like in her 90s. And I said, shockingly lime green. And I told her daughter, I said, this is just simply not going to look good on a cell phone. And she started laughing. And I said, that's got to go. So we painted a bunch in that house too. But yeah, as far as the internet, it's there's nothing that we can do to avoid it, but they get a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings, and they see things, but they don't understand what they're seeing. So the internet's kind of your best friend, because when you're in the hunt and you're working with 2 or 3 other people at the same time, and your buyers find a house that just popped up, you may not see it till the next day, and they saw it day one. And you may not see it till the next morning when you go and start checking all the new properties that popped up. And so anyway, I haven't seen a whole lot of changes, but people are using it, and that's how properties are shown. And it works to our advantage when we're the listing agent, because everybody's looking at it. They can be looking at it from Texas to California. You don't know where your buyer is going to be coming from. And so it works both positively and negatively.
Well, that's like my buyer. She was in Costa Rica, so she could only use WhatsApp. So I was having to take RMLS, put it to a realtor, and then send it through WhatsApp. And that's how I figured out to get them to her that way.
Yeah. Well, if you make it to the closing table, then it will all be just wonderful.
There you go.
And if it doesn't, you're going to learn a lesson.
There you go. Exactly.
So, there's sometimes we learn more from the mistakes we make and things like that than we do. It's like my gut instinct with the guy I was telling you about that called me one day, and he was parked within like 3 blocks of my house, wanting to come by my house at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I showed him all those properties that he bought from the seller direct. I had a gut feeling about that guy in the very beginning. He kind of creeped me out, but I still showed him a lot of properties, and he was ready to make a move, but he sold me down the street. And so, you learn to trust your instinct, and you don't do anything to he could have bought the house from me, who knows? But yeah, anyway, if nothing else, it's worth a good story, right? Okay, so let's see what else. Our buyer lead sheet here. Oh, let's move on here with the screen. You're probably tired of looking at that thing. All right, we've already talked about that. I'm behind the game here. And we have 15 minutes to get where we're going here. So all right, so these are just questions that they're suggesting that when you're dealing with your buyers for like a buyer consultation. If they're renting, you're asking if they have a lease, and then you need to know when that lease is up, or if they're willing to break their lease, because that'll cost them some money. Or one of the questions might be, do you have a house that you have to sell before you can buy? And sometimes that stuff will come out like in the initial meeting and they'll volunteer all that information. But this just kind of goes to a checklist that you'll have. And after a while, it becomes just a mental checklist and you don't have to refer to it. But in a buyer consult, having a list of those kind of questions really becomes of great advantage, because in the beginning, you just don't have enough experience to do that off the cuff. And the best emails and best phone numbers to reach people, those are, particularly if you're doing open houses, that's when, like, if you get in a conversation with somebody and they have a question, and I like to use this approach oftentimes too, is if I think that if maybe I've asked them if they were working with an agent already, because if they say yes, they are, and they ask you a question about the property, and maybe you know that answer, and depending on what the question is, because you don't want to make yourself look stupid, but I might say, I can get that information for you, but I'll run it by your agent since you're working with someone. So what's your best email and phone number to use? And so that's how you can get that information. And you don't want to go and prospect somebody else's, if they've got a buyer broker agreement and they're working with an agent, you don't want to do that, because that's just not good juju. It's just not the right business ethics to apply. But in the whole process of working with your buyers, finding out when the best time it is to call them, and what's, like, can you call them after 9 o'clock? And I try to do a cutoff for myself at 9 o'clock, because at 9 o'clock at night, because you'll still have the person that I've had clients that will text me at 2 in the morning. I'm thinking, my goodness. And so, yeah, and set some of those time frames for yourself too, because you can get burned out pretty easy. Let's see. I think we've covered everything else that's on that. Let's see. I looked through this and I do not see this buyer's lead sheet and everything that they're showing on the screen. So I'm just going to go by what their notes tell me here. So see if there's anything that we haven't covered on this particular one. Nope, don't see anything there. And don't see anything there. Now, I think this is a really important point here, and this is when they're talking about the quality of your buyers, whether they're an A buyer, a B buyer, or a C buyer. And it says, when you uncover a buyer who is not able, ready, and willing to buy right now, that indicates they are a future transaction. You need to stay in relationship with them. And again, that gets back to either calling them, emailing them, texting them, sending a property. And sometimes I will just send somebody just randomly a property that I know that, maybe they're not ready, but I'm just going, hey, I was thinking of you, because they have that note section at the bottom. I was thinking of you, and this just popped up. If anything's changed on your end and you would like to take a look at this property, let me know. So even if that they aren't quite ready, because again, you don't know absolutely for 100% sure that they aren't, that something hasn't changed. I just don't do it a ton, because you don't want them to do kind of like an unsubscribe email to you and say, quit bothering me. Okay, so they're talking about role playing, which we're not going to do. So while I'm just referring to these notes to see that I haven't missed anything, any questions? Questions or ahas? One of the things to think about too is that sometimes you'll encounter somebody who is going to sell their house, but maybe they're not going to sell it right now. And you for sure want to put those on whatever kind of touch program you have, whether it's a you know, the recommendation is to do a 36 touch, but in the 9 years that I've been in, I haven't done 36. Now, Mara, who your coach, Mara is relentless on the 36 touch, and it's paid off. But so, you know, you kind of decide how much you can handle. But for me, in the beginning, especially, 36 touch is just a lot. Once they get used to receiving it and they've worked with you and that sort of thing, I think it's different. But that's just me, and certainly work that out with, you know, within your own mindset about how much you want to communicate with them. But, you know, I would say that once a month is like a baseline. And twice a month would be better, whether you're just calling them, texting them. If you happen to know when their birthday is for whatever reason, just text them, and throughout your daily life, just remember that you're in real estate, and so always use it as a conversation starter, not starter, but infiltrate it somehow. You may just figure out ways to say, well, in my real estate business, blah, 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 or somehow so that people continually know that you're in the business. That's how I got my referral from my painter for this one listing, because every time that he comes over, I just pester him about, hey, don't, because he's done a ton of work for me, and I've hired him multiple times for other jobs within my real estate business. And I go, hey, don't forget me. I need listings, so don't forget me when you go and are working for somebody. And it does pay off. Sometimes it just takes longer than you think. Okay. Let's see here, what else we have. So that we're not doing. So here's a ratio of 19 to 36. See, I think 19 is reasonable and a lot easier to handle. 36 just is even overwhelming to me, but you know, the proof is in the production, and so I'm not one to discount. I'm saying 36 touch does work. I'm just saying that for me, I just don't do it. I think it's harder for me as a solo agent. Mara's been at it for a while, and she's developed her systems, and sometimes she hires people to help her, and I've only done the transaction coordination where I hire out, and so I just kind of enjoy doing it all myself, and I do stage the houses that I have as listings, and so it just answers that creative bug that I have. And so everybody has to decide what kind of business that they want for themselves. And there's no, as long as you make enough money and can start doing your own wealth development and your business is where you want it to be, then feel comfortable with that. You don't, just because somebody else does it a different way, doesn't mean that you have to. Okay, so we kind of talked about these qualifications for sellers, and you can read it on your pre-listing questionnaire. All of these are all very good. And if you can refer to these multiple times, and I would even refer to these before going to, because this is a pretty easy, just topics that you can bring up when you're talking to people at open houses. And I keep mentioning open houses because they're a very inexpensive way for you to get your name out there and get exposure in the business and be able to talk real estate.
Do you ever allow other people to do your open houses? Other agents?
I've had maybe, I can think of one time that I did, but as a rule, no. Because I'm hired by the seller and I want to get feedback that I can take back to the seller. I have answers that other agent's not going to be able to answer. And I just like doing it. I just feel like it's part of my job. So I don't farm it out. And especially when the nosy neighbors come through, then it gives me a chance to ask them if they're thinking about selling. And yeah, you know, I just like it. I like to do my own. And I told you that in December, I send out those the yearly calendar. And I keep extras of those on hands at my open house. And so, sometimes it's hard to get somebody to pick up your business card. But if I get in very much of a conversation with somebody, I'll just pick up one of my calendar magnets and I said, here's my contact information. It's on a calendar magnet. It's harder to lose than a business card. And I just make a joke about it and kind of laugh, and they laugh, go, yeah, you're right. And I don't think I've had anybody that's ever refused to take it. And this and the daily success system, they talk about, I'm just going to speed this up here. About that our first job of real estate is our lead generation, and that is the foundation of our business, and it truly is. And after you start developing some relationships with buyers and sellers that you've had, I become friends with a lot of them that I sell. Some of them I don't really want them to be in my friend circle, but I've got quite a number of them that I like to bake. And so I bake sourdough bread and I bake all kinds of pastries and things like that. And so I'll just drop them off to them. And some people call it a pop by. And people will do pop buys as for contacts that they have if they have their mailing address and stuff. And so they'll, like on May Day, they might send them some, put a little thing on their door hanger and put in some forget-me-not seed packets and stuff like that with their business card. And pop buys are a pretty inexpensive way to reach out to your sphere and to your mailing list as well. And let's see, the last of this session here is all about our do not call list and blah, blah, blah. All right, so as we're getting here towards the end, before I sign off, let me give you my contact information. And my email is Linda, LINDA, .reed, REED, @kw.com. I am in Eugene, and my phone number is 541-953-3011. I have two things that oftentimes when I'm doing the other presentation that I've shared with a lot of participants. When I have a buyer and I'm going out showing, let's just say that I'm going to show 5 to 7 houses in a day. I make up an Excel spreadsheet ahead of time, and I will have, I print it off and I put it on a clipboard for them. And I print off client full reports, even though I may have sent it to them in the mail. I print off client full reports that I have attached to their clipboard as well. And in my Excel spreadsheet, I have age of the house, square footage, price, how many days it's been on the market. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is when you show somebody 5 to 7 houses, it's very easy for them to get confused. And when I give them the client full report, I have them mark an X on that report if it's like absolutely without a doubt, I hate this house. Or I have them write any kind of note that they might want to remember about that house. Maybe it's like they loved the kitchen, but then the backyard had an ugly neighbor house and they didn't want to look at that ugly neighbor house. And so I have them put those kind of notes on the client full so they can differentiate, because I have had way too many buyers that get so confused and they can't remember one house from the next after you've shown them very many. So that I'm happy to share that form if you'd like it. Otherwise, you can create your own. The other thing that I do for my sellers is I have an Excel spreadsheet that I can share with you. If in the event that you get into a multiple offer situation, I list them as offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, and I do that as they come in to me. I list like what they're offering, if they wrote an escalation clause, if they're going VA loan, if they're going conventional loan, how soon they want to close, how much their down payment is, how soon they want into the house, if they're going to give you a perk of 3 weeks to stay after closing, any of those sorts of things. And I have that spreadsheet that I present. I email it to the client, depending on the age of the client and how they want to handle it. I like to go and present those in person, but oftentimes I've had to just email it to them and then we made a decision. And like if I have an out of state, I sold a commercial property a year ago, and those sellers were in Medford. So we just got on the phone and I'd emailed them the sheet. They printed it out and both of them were on the phone, and we did a 3-way call, went over so that they could compare it and know exactly what they were looking at. It's very confusing for the sellers sometimes to figure this out on their own if you just send it to them without explanation. So I'm happy to share those 2 forms. I think that they're valuable. I know that my clients have enjoyed having them. So email me, reach out anytime if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. And I wish you all the greatest success, and thank you for hanging in here for 2 hours, and good luck, and go sell a house.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.